The morning mist hung low over the valley, clinging to the fence posts like ghosts refusing to leave. September had arrived in Ridgewood with its particular brand of chill, the kind that settles into bones and makes old wounds ache. At the edge of town, where the paved road turned to gravel and the gravel turned to dirt, a boy knelt in a vegetable garden. His hands were caked with soil, fingernails black with earth. He was 12 years old, though the set of his jaw and the steadiness of his movements belonged to someone older. His name was Sam. He pulled carrots from the ground with practiced efficiency, shaking off the dirt before placing them in a wooden crate. Each carrot was worth 15 cents at the farmer's market. He had counted them yesterday. 240 carrots would get him another $36. $36 closer to freedom. Sam wiped his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of brown across his skin. In his pocket, folded into a careful square, was a piece of paper he had touched so many times the creases were wearing thin. The 4-H County Fair Obstacle Challenge. Entry fee, $25. Horse required. He had the entry fee. He did not have the horse, but he had $200 saved in a coffee tin under his bed. 2 years of mowing lawns, 18 months of mucking stalls at the Henderson farm, countless mornings pulling vegetables before school, every penny earned by his own two hands. $200. The problem was simple and devastating. In Ridgewood, a decent horse cost $2,000. A good horse cost $5,000. A horse capable of competing against Brock Sullivan's $50,000 warm blood might as well cost the moon. Sam stood up, stretching his back. Across the valley, the Sullivan estate sprawled across 300 acres of prime pasture land. White fences gleamed in the morning light. Horses that cost more than Sam's entire house grazed peacefully in emerald fields. He looked at his own property, a small farmhouse with the peeling paint, a barn that leaned slightly to the left, a paddock with weeds growing through the fence rails. But there was a paddock, and today was auction day. The Ridgewood Livestock Auction occupied a metal building at the edge of town. It smelled of hay and sweat, and the particular nervousness of animals who understood something was changing. Sam walked in with pocket change, hoping for a miracle, but he was about to find a partner that money couldn't buy. But real quick, before the bidding begins. If you love underdog stories where heart beats a heavy wallet, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you don't miss the rest of the story. Now, let's see what was waiting in the pen. Sam arrived early, his $200 tucked deep in his front pocket. He had walked the 4 miles from home, saving the bus fare. Every cent mattered now. The auction floor was already filling with buyers, farmers in worn overalls. Examined cattle with experienced eyes. Horse traders circled the equine pens, taking notes. And there, in the center of the chaos, stood Brock Sullivan. Brock was 14, tall for his age, with the confident posture of someone who had never wanted for anything. His boots were Italian leather, his belt buckle was solid silver, his smile was the kind that cut. He noticed Sam immediately. Well, Brock's voice carried across the auction floor. Look who showed up. You here to buy yourself a mule, farm boy? Sam said nothing. He moved past Brock toward the horse pens, keeping his eyes forward. Brock followed, flanked by 2 boys who laughed at everything he said. Seriously, what are you doing here? Brock leaned against a fence post, blocking Sam's path. The challenge is in 2 weeks. You can't just show up with a donkey and call it a horse. I'm looking, Sam said quietly. That's all. Looking with what money? Brock snorted. I heard your daddy left town and your mama works double shifts. At the diner. What are you going to buy? A picture of a horse? The other boys laughed. Sam felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his expression flat. He had learned early that showing emotion only gave people like Brock more ammunition. He moved around them and walked to the far end of the building where the discount pens were located. This was where the auction house put the animals that wouldn't sell for much. Old dairy cows, goats with questionable temperaments, horses that no one wanted. Sam stood at the railing and looked. There were 4 horses in the discount pen. A sway-backed mare with ribs showing through her coat. A pony with eyes too wild for training. A draft horse cross that wheezed with each breath. And in the corner, standing completely still, was a dusty gray gelding. Sam watched him for a long moment. The horse was maybe 15 hands tall. His coat was filthy, matted with mud and neglect. His mane hung in tangled clumps. He stood with his weight shifted off his back left leg, which he held at an odd angle. When he moved, he limped heavily. The motion was pronounced and unmistakable. The back leg dragged, barely clearing the ground with each step. It looked painful. It looked permanent. But Sam noticed something else. The horse's eyes. They were dark brown, almost black, with an intelligence that seemed out of place in a discount pen. While the other horses paced or kicked or showed their teeth, this one simply watched, observed, calculated. When Sam met his gaze, the horse held it. Something passed between them, something silent and strange. "What's that one's story?" Sam asked the auction hand who was filling water buckets nearby. The man glanced over and shrugged. "That's Trip. Came in from an estate sale down south. Previous owner died, no family claimed him. He's got that bum leg, been that way since we got him. Nobody's gonna buy a lame horse. How much is he going for?" "Starting bid is $75. The man laughed without humor. "Probably end there too. Might even go for glue if nobody takes him." Sam looked at the horse again. Trip looked back. The auction began at noon. Sam sat in the back row, his hands clasped in his lap, his heart beating harder than it should. The expensive horses went first, buyers raising paddles and shouting numbers that made Sam's head spin. 3,000, 5,000, 8,000 for a quarter horse with papers and championships. Brock Sullivan bought a young mare for his sister, dropping $4,000 like it was pocket change. He made sure to look at Sam when the auctioneer said sold. The hours passed, the cattle went, the goats went. The crowd thinned as the sun moved across the sky. Finally, the discount horses were brought out. The sway-backed mare sold for $250 to a farmer who planned to let her live out her days in a field. The wild pony went to a trainer who specialized in difficult cases. The wheezing draft horse found no buyers and was led back to the pen. And then Trip was brought forward. The handler had to walk slowly, accommodating the horse's heavy limp. Each step looked labored. The crowd murmured with a mixture of pity and disdain. "Lot 47, the auctioneer announced. Gelding, approximately 12 years old, unknown breeding. As you can see, he's got some mobility issues. Starting bid is $75. Do I hear 75? Silence. Sam's hand tightened on the paddle he had been assigned. $75? Anyone? The auctioneer looked around the room without hope. "This horse needs a home, folks. He's gentle, he's quiet. He just needs someone who doesn't mind a little limp." More silence. "Come on, people. $50. I'll start at 50. Sam raised his paddle. The auctioneer blinked. "We have 50 from the young man in the back. Do I hear 60? Across the room, Brock Sullivan stood up slowly. He looked at Sam with an expression of pure disbelief. "Wait." Brock's voice echoed through the auction. "Hall. Wait, is he actually bidding on that?" The auctioneer paused. "Sir, if you'd like to bid, I don't want to bid." Brock laughed, a sharp sound that bounced off the metal walls. "I just want to make sure I'm seeing this right. The kid with no money is buying the horse with no legs?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Sam's face burned, but he kept his paddle raised. "Son," the auctioneer said gently, leaning toward his microphone, "I appreciate your interest, but this horse is broken stock. He can't be ridden properly. He can't work. He can't compete. You understand that, right?" Sam looked at Trip. Trip looked at Sam. "I understand," Sam said. "I'm still bidding." The auctioneer sighed. $50 going once. Brock cupped his hands around his mouth. "Hey, Sam, you entering a race or a funeral procession?" More laughter, louder this time. $50 going twice. Sam's paddle stayed up. Sold. The auctioneer's gavel came down with a crack that silenced the room. To the young man in the back, "For $50. Son, I hope you know what you're doing." Sam stood up. He walked to the front desk, counted out $50 from his precious $200, and signed the paperwork with a hand that did not shake. Behind him, Brock Sullivan was still laughing. They walked home together as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. Sam led Trip by a worn leather halter he had bought for another $20. The horse limped beside him, dragging that back left leg with each step. The journey that should have taken an hour took nearly 3, but Sam did not rush him. They stopped at the top of a hill where the whole valley spread out before them. Sam could see the Sullivan estate in the distance, the white fences glowing golden in the evening light. He could see his own small farm, the leaning barn, the weedy paddock. He looked at Tripp. "I don't know why I bought you," Sam said honestly. "I don't know what you can do. But I looked in your eyes and I saw something. Something everyone else missed." Tripp shifted his weight, the limp pronounced even standing still. Sam reached out and touched the horse's neck. The muscles beneath the dirty coat were lean but present. The horse's breathing was steady and deep. "We've got 2 weeks," Sam said. 2 weeks until the fair. I'm not expecting miracles. I'm not expecting to win. But I'm expecting you to try. That's all I'm asking. Can you try?" Tripp turned his head and looked at Sam with those dark, intelligent eyes. Something passed between them again. Something that felt like agreement. The next morning, Sam woke before dawn. He found Tripp standing in the paddock, exactly where he had left him the night before. The horse had not moved, had not explored. He simply stood, watching the farmhouse with patient attention. Sam brought a bucket of warm water and a brush. For 2 hours, he worked on the horse's coat. Layers of dirt and mud came away, revealing a coat that was not merely gray but silver, catching the early light with an almost metallic shine. The tangled mane untangled into something that flowed. The matted tail became something that swept. Beneath the neglect, a different horse emerged. Tripp stood perfectly still throughout the grooming, though Sam could have sworn he leaned into the brushstrokes. When Sam ran his hands along the horse's legs, checking for injuries, he found none. The muscles were sound, the joints were flexible, except for that left rear leg. When Tripp moved, the limp was as pronounced as ever. Sam sat on the paddock fence and watched. He watched Tripp walk the perimeter. He watched Tripp turn. He watched Tripp stop and start. And he noticed something strange. The limp was consistent, perfectly consistent. Every step was identical. Every drag of the leg was exactly the same length. There was no variation, no adjustment for terrain, no change when the horse was tired. Real injuries changed. Real pain fluctuated. Real damage showed itself in 100 small variations. This limp never changed. Sam filed the observation away and began training. The first day was about trust. Sam walked Tripp around the paddock, keeping the pace slow, letting the horse set the rhythm. He talked constantly, telling Tripp about his life, about his father who had left 2 years ago, promising to come back, never returning, about his mother who worked doubles at the Ridgewood diner, coming home exhausted with tips in her apron pocket, about the county fair, and how much he wanted to prove that worth wasn't measured in dollars. Tripp listened, or seemed to. When evening came, Sam gave the horse extra oats and an apple, watching those intelligent eyes track his every movement. The second day was about communication. Sam tried every command he knew: walk, trot, whoa, back, easy. Tripp responded to all of them, limping his way through each movement with patient cooperation. But Sam wanted more. He tried unusual words: go, move, fast, run. Nothing changed. He tried clicking his tongue, whistling, snapping his fingers. The limp remained. Brock Sullivan rode past the fence on his show horse, a magnificent bay warmblood that moved like liquid silk. "Looking good, farm boy," Brock called out. "Real promising. Maybe you can enter him in the limping contest." His friends laughed. They always laughed. Sam watched them ride away, then turned back to Tripp. The horse was watching him with those dark eyes. "What are you hiding?" Sam asked quietly. "What's your secret?" Tripp said nothing. Of course. But something in his posture shifted, something subtle, something almost like acknowledgement. The third day was about research. Sam spent his lunch break at the school library, searching through old horse magazines and training manuals. He was looking for something, though he wasn't sure what. He found an article about trained movie horses. The article described specialized commands that Hollywood animal trainers used, commands that made horses lie down, play dead, or simulate injuries for war films and westerns. Some horses, the article explained, learn these commands so thoroughly that they become second nature. A well-trained stunt horse might have dozens of specialized behaviors, each triggered by a specific word or gesture. Sam read the article 3 times. That night, he stood in the paddock with Tripp as the stars came out. "Okay," Sam said, "let's try something different." He thought about movie commands, about the kinds of words a trainer might use. Simple words, action words. Stand, Tripp stood, limping slightly as he shifted weight. Rest. Nothing changed. Normal. Nothing changed. Sam went through a dozen words, 2 dozen. The moon rose higher, and his mother called him in for dinner. But before he went, he tried one more. Action. Something happened. It was so fast Sam almost missed it. A twitch ran through Tripp's body, a ripple that started at his ears and ran down his spine. His posture shifted, his neck lifted, his back leg, the one that had been dragging for days, moved normally. Then, just as quickly, the limp returned. Tripp stood there, looking at Sam as if nothing had happened. But Sam had seen it. Sam had seen everything. The days that followed were different. Sam trained in secret now, waking before his mother and staying in the paddock after dark. He was learning. Tripp was teaching. The command was action. And it changed everything. When Sam said the word, Tripp transformed. The limp vanished completely. The dragging leg became a powerful piston. The dusty gelding became something else entirely. Something magnificent. Tripp could run. Not just run, but fly. He covered the paddock in seconds, banking around corners with precision that made Sam's breath catch. He could stop on a dime, spin on his haunches, reverse direction without losing speed. He was fast. He was agile. He was perfect. And when Sam said the word rest, the limp returned. Tripp became the pathetic, dragging creature everyone had mocked. It was a trick. The limp was a trained behavior, as deliberate and controlled as a dancer's choreography. This horse had been taught to fake an injury, probably for movies, probably for scenes where a wounded cavalry mount needed to look convincing. Tripp wasn't broken. Tripp was playing a role. Sam laughed out loud, alone in the paddock under a canopy of stars. He laughed until tears ran down his cheeks. Brock Sullivan had no idea what was coming. The morning of the county fair arrived cold and clear. Frost coated the grass. Steam rose from the coffee cups of early arrivals. The fairgrounds hummed with nervous energy, horses being brushed and tacked, riders stretching and pacing. Sam led Tripp through the parking area, and the whispers started immediately. "Look at that horse. Is that the limping one? Why would anyone bring that to a competition?" Tripp dragged his leg through the gravel, looking every bit as pathetic as the day Sam had bought him. His head hung low. His coat was clean, but unremarkable. He seemed barely capable of walking, much less competing. Sam kept his expression neutral. In the warm-up arena, Brock Sullivan was putting his warm blood through its paces. The horse was magnificent, moving with fluid power, responding to the slightest touch. Brock rode with the easy confidence of someone who had never lost. He spotted Sam and trotted over. "You actually showed up." Brock shook his head in disbelief. With that, "I entered," Sam said simply. "I'm competing." "Competing." Brock laughed. "You're not competing. You're making a fool of yourself. That horse can barely walk. The obstacle course has a 6-foot wall jump. Your horse couldn't clear a speed bump." "We'll see," Sam said. Brock's smile flickered, just for a moment. Then it returned, broader than ever. "Yeah, we'll see." The obstacle challenge was the premier event of the 4-H County Fair. The course was designed to test everything: speed, agility, courage, and the bond between horse and rider. It featured tight, weave poles, burning flares that horses had to pass without panicking, water crossings, narrow bridges, and finally, the 6-foot wall jump that eliminated half the entries every year. The stands were packed. 300 people had come to watch, locals who knew their horses and could appreciate the difficulty of what was about to happen. Brock Sullivan went first. He rode onto the course like a conquering hero, his warm blood prancing with barely contained power. When the starting bell rang, they exploded forward. The crowd gasped. They were fast, brutally fast. The warm blood weaved through the poles like thread through a needle. The burning flares didn't even make him hesitate. The water crossing was nothing. The narrow bridge was nothing. And when they approached the wall, Brock gathered his horse and launched. They cleared it by 6 inches. The landing was clean. The finish was flawless. Time, 2 minutes, 14 seconds. The crowd erupted. It was the fastest time in 3 years. Parents stood and cheered. Young riders watched with envy. Brock raised his fist in triumph as he trotted out of the arena. He passed Sam on the way. "Beat that," he said quietly. "Oh, wait, you can't." Sam said nothing. He led Tripp toward the starting gate. The announcer's voice echoed through the fairground speakers. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we have our last entry. Sam from Ridgewood, riding... The announcer paused, clearly reading notes that made him uncomfortable. Riding a horse named Tripp, also apparently known as the, Limping Wonder. Scattered giggles ran through the crowd. Sam led Tripp to the starting line. The horse dragged his back leg through the dirt, leaving a trail that looked almost sad. His head was still low. His posture was still defeated. The crowd murmured with a mixture of pity and confusion. Why would anyone enter a lame horse? This is embarrassing. Someone should stop this. Sam mounted Tripp slowly. He gathered the reins. He looked at the obstacle course stretching out before them, the poles and flares and water and wall. He leaned forward. He put his lips close to Tripp's ear. He whispered one word: action. The transformation was instant. Tripp's head snapped up. His ears pricked forward. His back leg, the one that had been dragging moments before, planted firmly in the dirt. The limp was gone. His whole body changed. Muscles that had seemed slack were suddenly coiled springs. Eyes that had seemed dull were suddenly blazing. He was no longer a broken-down gelding from a discount pen. He was something else entirely. The starting bell rang. Tripp exploded off the line like a horse possessed. No, like a horse unleashed. The crowd's laughter died in their throats. Tripp hit the weave poles at full speed, banking left and right with the precision of a guided missile. His turns were so sharp, they seemed to defy physics. His hooves struck the ground with a rhythm that sounded like drum beats, like thunder, like war, the burning. Flares approached. Any other horse would have slowed, would have hesitated, would have shown fear. Tripp accelerated. He passed between the flames so close that Sam felt heat on both sides. The fire reflected in Tripp's silver coat, making him look like something from mythology, something ancient and powerful. The crowd was silent now, dead silent. Tripp hit the water crossing without breaking stride, sheets of spray rising behind him like wings. He took the narrow bridge at a full gallop, hooves never faltering, balance perfect. And then the wall, the 6-foot wall that eliminated half the competition. The wall that Brock's $50,000 warm blood had barely cleared. Sam didn't slow down. Tripp gathered beneath him, muscles bunching, power coiling. They launched. Time seemed to slow. Sam felt Tripp's body arc upward, felt gravity release its hold, felt the impossible become possible. The wall passed beneath them, 6 feet of solid timber, and Tripp cleared it, not by 6 inches, by a full foot. They hung in the air for a moment that stretched like taffy, the crowd below them frozen in disbelief. Sam could see their faces, mouths open, eyes wide. Then they landed, silent as a ghost. Tripp's hooves touched dirt without a sound, without a stumble, without a break in stride. He was still running, still flying, still attacking the course like a creature made of muscle and lightning. They crossed the finish line. The electronic timer flashed. 1 minute, 47 seconds. 27 seconds faster than Brock Sullivan. The silence lasted for 3 heartbeats. Then someone started clapping. It was slow at first, a single pair of hands somewhere in the stands. Then another joined. Then another. Then the clapping became cheering, became shouting, became a wall of sound that washed over the arena. Sam sat on Tripp's back, breathing hard, hardly believing what had just happened. The horse beneath him stood perfectly still, not even winded. His coat gleamed silver in the afternoon sun. His eyes, those dark, intelligent eyes, were calm, patient, almost knowing. Sam patted his neck with a shaking hand. "Good boy," he whispered. "Good boy." In the stands, an old man stood up slowly. He was perhaps 70, with weathered hands and a face that had seen decades of sun. He wore a faded jacket and held a hat that he had removed, turning it slowly in his fingers. He knew that horse. He had known that horse for a long time. The old man made his way down the bleacher steps, moving with the careful deliberation of someone whose joints no longer worked as well as they once had. People stepped aside for him without knowing why, sensing something important in his bearing. He approached the arena rail. "Excuse me," he called out. His voice was rough but carried. "Young man, where did you get that horse?" Sam looked over, still mounted, still catching his breath. "At the auction, in Ridgewood." He was in the discount pen. The old man nodded slowly. Do you know what you have there? Do you know who that is? Sam shook his head. The old man walked to the arena gate. A fair official moved to stop him, but something in the old man's expression made him step back. My name is Walter Reed, the old man said, entering the arena. I spent 40 years as an animal coordinator in Hollywood, trained horses for movies, television, commercials, trained hundreds of them. He stopped a few feet from Tripp and looked at the horse with something that might have been tears in his eyes. But I only trained one like him. Walter reached out and touched Tripp's muzzle. The horse, who had been suspicious of everyone but Sam, allowed it, more than allowed it. He leaned into the touch, making a soft sound deep in his chest. His name isn't Tripp, Walter said quietly. His name is Phantom, and he isn't crippled. He never was. Sam stared. The crowd, which had been buzzing with confusion, went quiet again. Walter turned to face them, raising his voice so everyone could hear. This horse was the top stunt horse in the industry for 12 years. He worked on war movies, westerns, period pieces. He could do things that no other horse could do. Fall on command, lie perfectly still for minutes at a time. And yes, he stopped speaking to look at Tripp, at Phantom, with profound affection. He could fake an injury so convincingly that even veterinarians were fooled. A murmur ran through the crowd. The limp, Walter continued, is a trained behavior. It was developed for a Civil War film where he played a wounded cavalry mount. The command to activate it is rest. The command to deactivate it is action. He learned it so thoroughly that it became second nature. Sam felt something click into place. All those days of training, all those hours of searching for the right word. He had accidentally discovered the command that unlocked everything. But how did he end up in a discount pen? Someone in the crowd asked. Walter's expression darkened. Phantom was retired 8 years ago. He was supposed to be living on a ranch in Montana, well cared for until the end of his days. But the owner died, and somehow the estate failed. He got passed from farm to farm, probably ended up in some holding pen where nobody knew what they had. He turned to Sam. Until you found him. Sam looked at Tripp, at Phantom, at the extraordinary creature who had been hiding in plain sight. I didn't know, Sam said. I just saw something in his eyes. Walter smiled. That's the thing about Phantom. He always knew who could see him, who was worth showing himself to. He tested everyone who came near him, and almost everyone failed. The old man's voice dropped lower, meant only for Sam. But not you. You saw through the disguise. You trusted what everyone else dismissed. He believed in me too, Sam said quietly, when nobody else did. Across the arena, Brock Sullivan stood by the exit gate. His face was pale. His hands were clenched at his sides. The silver buckle on his belt, which had gleamed so proudly an hour ago, seemed suddenly cheap. He had lost, not just lost, been humiliated, beaten by a horse he had mocked for weeks, defeated by a boy he had bullied and belittled. For a moment, something ugly crossed his face. Anger, denial, the urge to claim it wasn't fair, that there had been some trick, some cheating. But even Brock Sullivan could read a room. 300 people were on their feet, applauding a 12-year-old boy and an old horse who had fooled everyone. The story was already spreading, whispered from mouth to mouth, growing with each telling. Brock turned and walked away. No one noticed him leave. A woman in an expensive blazer approached Sam as he was dismounting. She moved with the clipped efficiency of someone who made decisions for a living. Her phone was already in her hand, her expression calculating. That was extraordinary, she said. Truly extraordinary. I'm Helen Crawford, representing Pacific Ridge Studios. We've been looking for Phantom for years. Sam held the reins tightly. We'd like to buy him back. She said it casually, as if offering to purchase a used car. We'll pay handsomely. $50,000. That's 100 times what you paid. The crowd still gathered, went quiet again. $50,000. More money than Sam had ever conceived of. More than his mother made in 2 years. Enough to fix the farmhouse, the barn, the fences. Enough to buy a car, pay for college, change everything. Sam looked at Tripp. Tripp looked at Sam. Those dark eyes held a question, a trust, a patience that seemed infinite. Sam thought about the last 2 weeks, the early mornings, the late nights, the whispered conversations where he had poured out his heart to an animal who listened without judgment. The moment when he had said action and discovered not a broken horse, but a hidden masterpiece. He thought about what it meant to be seen, to be believed in, to be chosen. "He's retired," Sam said. The woman blinked. "I'm sorry?" Sam turned to face her fully. His shoulders were straight, his voice was steady. "He's retired, and he's mine." The sun was setting by the time Sam led Trip out of the fairgrounds. The blue ribbon hung from the horse's bridle, fluttering in the evening breeze. The trophy, a modest thing compared to the crystal Brock Sullivan usually collected, was tucked under Sam's arm. But those weren't the important things. The important thing was the way Trip walked beside him, no longer limping, moving with the easy grace of an athlete who no longer needed to hide. The important thing was the way people looked at them now, not with pity or mockery, but with respect. The important thing was the old man who had pressed a card into Sam's hand before leaving. "If you ever need anything," Walter had said, "anything at all, you call me. That horse deserves to live out his days with someone who sees him. And so do you." Sam's mother was waiting at the edge of the parking lot. She worked doubles most days, and Sam had told her not to come. "To the fair. Don't take off work," he had said. "It's probably not going to go well anyway." But she had come. She had seen everything. She was crying now, quiet tears that ran down cheeks worn from years of struggle. "Sam," she whispered. "Oh, Sam." He walked to her, leading Trip, and for a moment he was not a boy who had trained a legendary horse and beaten a bully and refused $50,000. He was just her son. She put her arms around him and held on tight. They walked home together in the gathering dark. Sam and his mother and the horse who was not broken. The horse who had merely been waiting for someone worthy of his secrets. The stars came out one by one. The valley spread beneath them, quiet and peaceful, the lights of Ridgewood twinkling in the distance. Somewhere out there, Brock Sullivan was nursing his wounded pride. Somewhere out there, a studio executive was explaining to her bosses that she had failed to acquire an asset. None of that mattered. What mattered was this moment. What mattered was the weight of the ribbon in Sam's pocket, the trophy under his arm, the reins in his hand. What mattered was the lesson that Trip, that phantom, had taught him without ever speaking a word. The world will look at you and see what it expects to see. But your true self is not what others perceive. Your true self is what you show to those who believe in you. Months later, Sam would tell the story to anyone who asked. Not the parts that made him look heroic. Not the moment of victory or the refused money or the crowd's applause. He told them about the auction, about the moment when everyone was laughing, when even the auctioneer was trying to warn him off, when the jeers of Brock Sullivan echoed through the metal building. "I looked in his eyes," Sam would say, "and I saw someone looking back, someone real, someone who was more than they appeared." He would pause then, running his hand along Trip's silver neck. "I guess we both were." The paddock at Sam's farm was no longer weedy. The fences had been repaired, painted white to match the Sullivan estate across the valley. Not because Sam cared about keeping up appearances, but because Trip deserved it. Every morning, Sam would wake before dawn and find Trip standing at the paddock fence, watching the farmhouse with those patient, intelligent eyes. Every morning, Sam would bring him an apple and stand with him as the sun rose. And sometimes, when the light was just right and the valley was still quiet, Sam would lean close and whisper one word, "Action," and the horse would run. Not because anyone was watching, not because there was a competition to win, or a bully to defeat, or a point to prove, just because he could. Just because Sam had given him permission to be himself. The blue ribbon hung in Sam's room for years. Eventually, the edges faded, the fabric grew soft with age. The gold lettering wore away until you could barely read the words 4-H County Fair Champion. But Sam never took it down. Because it was never really about winning. It was about seeing. It was about believing. It was about a broken-down boy and a broken-down horse, finding each other in the discount pen of life and discovering that neither of them was broken at all. They had just been waiting for someone who could see past the limp, past the dirt, past the low starting price, waiting for someone who understood that worth isn't measured in dollars, and when they found each other, they stopped waiting. And they started running.